Tara Keach here with the Real Crew, the collective of real executive women. I'm so happy to be with you guys in the Facebook group and on YouTube Live. This is the Real Crew's second episode. This is the episode about how to empower the yes and stop enforcing the no. So I hate being the bad guy. I've never liked saying no to anyone. I don't think many people do. If you do, I would love to hear your story about how you make that really a positive thing for you. So in this episode, I wanted to break down exactly how we could reframe the way that we say no to people in a way that boosts our reputation. It boosts the engagement that we get back from others, and it boosts our productivity because we're able to really frame what we're doing in a positive way. So thank you for being here. First of all, you have got to get the guide. It's a step-by-step printable. You can, of course, you don't have to print it out. You can keep the PDF copy, but it will be a really helpful, useful reference point, both as we go through the conversation and then ongoing. It's going to walk you through every step, and it gives you a breakdown exactly of the formula to use when you're communicating your no into a positive way. So if you haven't done so, go ahead and grab it, and let's get started. So this came about, this has happened to me for years now, and especially as a mother, it seems like something that I have to do every single day, is say no to people. And as you all know, that impacts the way that we're seen by others. I dread that I will be the voice of no, 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 no in my daughter's memories. So because we're programmed societally to understand that if we're not part of the solution, that we are part of the problem, let's reframe that. We have the ability to control how people perceive us. This is really like an interpersonal PR launch. So if you're feeling like you have to say no a lot, if you feel like you're constantly giving people the bad news, being on the defensive or pushing back, being the bad guy, being the messenger that everyone seems to want to kill, then this is for you. All right. The simple answer is do more good and less bad. Say more good things and less bad things. But it's not always that easy, right? So if you want to be seen more positively as someone who is solution-oriented, someone who's a team builder, a true collaborator, a solution finder, then you've got to do positive things in a positive way. Because we all know that fundamentally, we grow what we sow. So what does positive mean? Let's take a step back and think about this. So being positive means being trusting. It takes a huge leap of faith to assume the best about people. I can admit that it is one of the hardest things to do. And also, positivity means being open. So not just forcing yourself to assume the best about people, but taking a step back from the assumptions that you automatically knee-jerk make about people. So being open, being willing to learn, being willing to generate new ideas, being curious. And, it's the corresponding absence of negative behaviors. So we're going to talk about that in a few minutes as we get into the specific steps. But a big one can be rumination or indulging in that anxiety that sometimes we feel when we are having to say no, or we feel like we might be perceived as less than ideal. So, all right, the way this works psychologically, the underlying theory behind what we're about to go through is all about the science of perception. We psychologically are going to prime others to perceive us in a positive way. So what that means is you're going to train other people to associate you with solutions, to associate you with positive change, proactivity, productivity, progress. All right, down to brass tacks. Go ahead and get that guide. It's linked out there in the summary for you. And let's talk through this. So we all agree that we want to be seen more positively. We hate saying no. The trick is that positive actions create positive attention. So your actions control how you're perceived. And I want to say a big caveat here that being positive does not mean being a pushover. It does not mean pliable or mean being slimy or salesy or distorting the truth in any way. It just means being able to frame things really honestly and then focus on the solution. So first step, get your guide, find the no. And this is going to be the silliest, most easiest thing you've ever had to do, because anytime you're encountering something and you hear your own dialogue internally or externally voiced saying, no way, that's impossible, that's crazy, what are you talking about, this ridiculous, that's your no. All right. So this, of course, can come from anyone in your life, but thinking specifically about your coworkers, your boss, your teammates, your clients, anytime you hear a no, let that be a little flag for you that this is an opportunity to use this exercise. Okay, next, huge disclaimer, miniature soapbox. Again, pay attention. Positivity does not in any way minimize legitimate risk. It is not trying to make things all sunshine and lollipops. We know that that's not true. It is not delusional thinking or rose-colored glasses. I know and you know that risks are important. They are critical, actually vital to our survival, literally, as humans, as we've come to exist on the planet. If we're tuning out actual legitimate risks, then we put ourselves in a vulnerable position. The same for our career. If we are tuning out legitimate risks, then we miss things that can catastrophically harm our initiatives, our projects, our programs, our teams. This is not telling you to ignore risks. All right. This is just a tactic for reframing the risks into solutions. So I'm done with my soapbox. Let's move on. You've identified the no, which is step 1 in your guide. The next step is to stop ruminating on the negative. This is so important. So your first reaction was no, but let's take a look at exactly what problem or what ask is trying to solve. And it doesn't mean that it's a real no, right? So if you take a beat, look back at the ask, give yourself again that moment of willingness to be open and stop ruminating on the negative. So as an internal audit, listen to what you're saying out loud and what you're thinking. If you keep running over and over and over that same soundtrack of reasons why this idea is a no or why this ask is impossible, just stop it right there. Also, another flag, if you sense yourself physiologically feeling anxious about this, they feed each other. Rumination and anxiety are a cycle. So the more you think about something negative, the more anxious you get about it, and the more likely it is to come to bear. So the more anxious you get about it, and the more you ruminate, just stop. You can even acknowledge it out loud. This is one of the things that really works for me, is to actually say it out loud, and it helps me stop it because it makes it feel like it's less abstract and it's more something that I can actually stop doing. So say it out loud. My first reaction is a no, but all right. And that's going to get us to step 3. So before I move on to step 3, I want to call out a really good resource that I just came across. Dr. Alice Boyes just wrote and released a book called The Anxiety Toolkit. If you are someone who feels like you're dealing with anxiety constantly, this is a really great resource. And she says it best. She says, rumination and worry tend to be associated with being closed to new ideas, which can put you in a negative light. It helps you, it prevents you from being a true collaborator. If you're closed off to new ideas, there's no way you can move forward. There's no way that you can help your team get where they need to be, or no way that you can progress yourself. So check it out, the Anxiety Toolkit. I'll link it below in the summary here. And remember, anxiety and rumination feed each other. So just stop. I know that's super simple advice and so much easier to say than it is to do, but flag yourself, be mindful of that. And then when you sense yourself going over and over the same thing, pause and stop. All right, next up. So you've identified the no, you've stopped ruminating on the negative and all the reasons why it doesn't make sense. The next step is really my favorite. This is where you get the facts. You dig into the research, do some critical thinking. You can be creative about this if you don't have resources that can get you closer to the source. Do some observation. What you want to understand from the people who ask this and from all the participants involved is about the ask, what value will it ultimately give them? When I say value, I mean emotionally, I mean physically, I mean with status, politically. What value will this ask ultimately deliver to them or to those that they value? All right. Then think about what different ways can the same need be met? So this gets us to step number 4, consider the but. So focus on what is possible and different ways to get there. This is where you've really got to keep going. You've got to keep learning, keep researching, and be open. I love this quote. One of my all-time favorite gurus is Janet Lansbury. She's a teacher in the parenting arena, but so much of what she teaches applies to everything that we do in our corporate world. And she talks about trust being the ability to see people in their most positive light. So be open to the possibility that the solution can be met in another way. There you go. Consider the but. You've gotten the facts. You've been really creative with considering the but in step 4. And now we're on to step 5, which is empowering the yes. So again, check the guide out. We've got the formula laid out there for you. I'm going to walk you through it. So what you really want to do, this is the take-home message here, is frame what you can do and your proposal in a positive light. So now that you know the real ask, you know who your audience is, you know what value they're ultimately after, you want to frame it, again, candidly stating what you can and cannot do, but then wrap it up with a solution. Wrap it up with a proposal. Don't just go in there with a flat no. You want to be a solution finder. You want to be a team member who brings others up. And you want to be the person who they constantly associate with someone who's a solution finder, someone who's able to get it done despite odds against them. So here we go. This is my personal formula for how I frame things when they're really negative. And you can see this here. It's step number 5 in the guide. So the first thing, you want to restate what they asked for. That demonstrates to them that you understand fully what they're dealing with. You want to summarize why it's important to them. In other words, you're aligning yourself to their values. If you can communicate back to them why that ask was relevant, valuable, and important, you immediately build an alliance with them. They trust you. You build know, like, and trust because they feel like you're on their team. Next, clearly outline what you can and cannot do from what they originally asked, and then highlight why. So if it's a cost constraint, if it's a resource constraint, if it's a timeline constraint, if it's just something that's not quite feasible as they relate it to you, that's fine. Tell them in simple, straightforward terms. No huge explanation needed. Hit it at the summary level. Then here comes your magical but. Your magical but is the reframing of what's possible. So what can be done? Plug it in right here. Tell them what you're willing to do, what value that will deliver, and then you can wrap it up with if then. Because of course, if you're saying no, it means you don't have all the resources to meet it originally, but you might need other things to support accomplishing your proposal. So it's the if then statement. If we can get that extra funding, if you can reprioritize existing constraints, then that's something that we'll be able to deliver. If then. All right. So let's look at this again. You saw something that you said no to as a knee-jerk reaction. You heard yourself say no to it. So you immediately stopped ruminating. That's step number 2. You stopped emphasizing the negative and what makes it hard to accomplish, what might make it impossible. You dug in to get the facts about the actual ask and understand where they were coming from, why it was important to them. And number 3. And number 4, you're creative. You're thinking about what is possible. And in number 5, you're readdressing it with them. You're running through this with them in a positive light based on what is doable. Now you get bonus points here. I love this. If you can go back to them with the no, with your proposal, and you give them actionable things that they can do for their next step. This is so valuable if you can tell them that you've already engaged the right people, if you've already assessed the level of effort, if you've already gotten budgets in place, if you've already aligned the team so that they're ready to move when somebody makes a decision. You are not only proactive in getting it done, but you've thought about their needs and you've taken it to the next level. So this will get you recognized. This will get you appreciated. This will get you empowered with more responsibility. If that's what you want, this is the right way to do it. And this, using this approach, this 5-step approach, will absolutely help you be seen in a more positive light. This is powerful stuff, guys. All right. I'm going to close this with a pointer that this does also work really well with kids. And one more Taraism. This is a rule that I've applied in my own life in so many different circumstances. But if you want something from other people, give it. If you want to be perceived more positively, give more positivity back. It's the same simple principle as what you plant will grow. So plant positivity, grow positivity. And that concludes our masterclass, our second episode. With love, joy, and gratitude, guys. Please post your questions below. I'm going to summarize it and put a couple other links out there for you. I'm so glad to be here with you on this adventure. You guys have a really good rest of your day. We'll talk again soon.